So as it turns out, I wasn't quite finished talking about Espeon. In the last video, that is Advanced Eevee Guide Part 2, we talked about Espeon's skill, Charge Strength M, and then we compared it to its two main competitors, that is Ampharos, who is also Charge Strength M, but Ampharos does a better job at it, and Golduck, which has Charge Strength S, but because it triggers a lot, it can actually work out to be better to be running a Golduck instead of an Espeon for a skill specialist in Charge Strength. But what I didn't talk about is whether you should actually use this skill at all. I mean, when we talked about Sylveon and Leafeon, we did talk about how Energy for Everyone is a meta-relevant skill. It is a useful skill. In fact, it's so good, it's as good in some situations as a favorite berry Finding S Berry Specialist. But how about Charge Strength? So we know that within the skill specialists, Ampharos and Golduck are the best at it, but do you want to use this skill at all? How does it compare to running a Berry Specialist? Because, well, that's what Charge Strength is. Charge Strength is just another way to give Snorlax power without using berries. And it doesn't have the complexity of ingredients and dishes. So the main competitors are berry specialists. The mechanics in terms of charge strength and berries, well, they're not too dissimilar. Charge strength, well, basically gives a giant berry to the Snorlax. You don't have to match any recipes for any recipe bonus or anything like that compared to ingredient specialists. Whereas berry specialists are just feeding sort of small amounts of berry strength over a long period of time. So the question remains, well, which one's better? Why wouldn't you just run berry specialists anyway? And the answer is, and you might have already guessed, is that Charge Strength M or S, as long as the skill trigger is high like Golduck, is better at early levels. Whereas once you start hitting that level cap like level 50, the berry strength of your Pokemon should outweigh the Charge Strength S or M skills. And the other downside of Charge Strength as a skill is that if you don't open the app to collect the skill, well, you don't earn anything from it. In contrast, Berry Strength are always added to Snorlax. Even if the inventory is maxed, you get sneaky snacking. So while there is some argument to say that Charge Strength is good for early game or if you're completely free to play, so your game progress is kind of slow, you're just not finding all of the Berry Finding S Pokemon for every berry type, then a Charge Strength investment, so such as Ampharos, could be quite good for you in terms of the short to medium term. Until the day that you've got enough matching favorite berry typing, Berry Finding S specialists for every single area, Ampharos or maybe even Espeon or Golduck could be quite useful to you. And for the rest of the video, I'm going to prove that to you using the RainNX calculator to show you what kinds of strength you can get using skill specialists for charge strength versus berry specialists. So once again, we're going to head on over to team analysis in the RainNX calculator. And this time we're going to compare the absolute best stat that we can think of for Espeon. So let's say we give it Skill Trigger M, Skill Trigger S, and Berry Finding S. So Berry Finding, Skill Trigger, and then Skill Trigger again. Helping Speed and Inventory are also good options for skill specialists. And then we're going to give it Main Skill Chance Up and EXP Down, so that the EXP Down doesn't actually affect the calculations. And I would say something like this at level 50 would be a pretty top tier Espeon. And we're going to compare a top tier Espeon with a top tier berry specialist. We're going to leave it with no favorite berry at this stage, just for comparison, so that we can see who makes a better generalist. A generalist being a Pokemon you can bring it to any area and it will still be viable, it will still provide you strong berry strength or just strength in general. Would it be Espeon or even Ampharos that has a skill that happens to provide similar strength irrespective of what the favorite berry is? Or is it going to be a berry specialist that has berry finding S, but is not favorite berry. So let's take a look at Feraligatr. I like to use Feraligatr for comparison because, well, Totodile is a bit easier to obtain in my opinion compared to some other berry specialists, and it's early game enough for most people to find it relevant. Now, we're not going to put skill trigger for Feraligatr because where it shines is when the speed is up. We're also not going to put helping bonus, even though helping bonus is a top tier skill, and that's because helping bonus will help the rest of the team. So you actually end up boosting Espeon, which defeats the purpose of our discussion today. So what we're going to do, we're going to give it a lot of helping speed instead, and then we're going to give it the best nature for a berry specialist, which is typically speed of help up and ingredient finding down, but I'm going to choose to give it speed of help up and EXP down instead, just to make it fair, because Espeon doesn't have ingredient finding down in our example. It has EXP down, and since ingredient also adds to the total strength, and so it would only be fair for me to also give Feraligatr EXP down instead. But I don't think it's going to affect the calculation that much. It's just for fair comparison purposes. And once again, we're going to make it level 50. And let's see if in the absence of favorite berry typing, so in other words, Espeon gets ×2 psychic berries, and Feraligatr in this case gets ×3 Oran berries, which Pokemon will provide the most total strength? Now, what I haven't done here is I haven't given Espeon its max potential because it's only at level 2 main skill. So that's why that total strength number is so low. Now, if you can afford 4 main skills to invest in an evolution to make it level 6 main skill, this changes the game. Espeon being skill focused is going to provide a huge amount of strength, mostly in the skills department, because you can see in the blue line here, it's all skill strength. The green is berry and the yellow is ingredient. But if we're going to be that wasteful and put 4 main skill seeds on Espeon, it would only be fair for us to also give Feraligatr 3 main skills seeds, just so it also accounts for its own charge strength S. And now we are almost tied for strength. Espeon still being slightly better in terms of total strength. So does that mean charge strength M Pokemon like Espeon and Ampharos are actually better to bring on a team when you can't find Pokemon of favorite berry typing? For example, this is my current team for Lakeside, and the Pokemon do rotate around a bit depending on what I need in the moment, but have a look at what I've got here. Is I've got 3 berry specialists that are not relevant to the berry typing of this week. Would I have been better off to bring a charge strength M, level 6 main skill, Espeon or Ampharos instead? According to this simulation, yes, it would be slightly better. Again, the only catch is let's look at the breakdown of the strengths provided. So we've got 10,000 from berries, 1,500 from ingredients, and 23,000 from skill trigger. But the real problem lies in the fact that you have to make it trigger 5 to 6 times a day. And what I mean by that is if you log into the game 3 times a day, well, actually the Espeon is doing nothing at all. So if you're just a casual gamer for Pokemon Sleep, I wouldn't recommend charge strength even if the calculator says it's better, because you're probably not going to get 5 triggers a day. To get 5 triggers a day, you're not just looking at logging in 5 times, you're looking at logging in maybe 6, 7 or 8 times, so that hopefully within those 8 times you do check on the Pokemon, you will get 5 triggers. So practically speaking, I would say a good berry finding S berry specialist is still going to be better. Now the reason why in yesterday's video in part 2, this is now part 2.5, but in part 2's video, we saw that the skill trigger was about 2, 3 or 4 times. The reason why it went up is because, well, as your Pokemon levels up, it gets faster. It unlocks more skill, it starts getting more skill trigger or helping speed or inventory. So the number of triggers per day continue to go up. But are you going to be logging into the game more and more as you level up? That's the problem of Charge Strength M or S. Are you going to be changing how you play the game just because Espeon has now unlocked Skill Trigger M? And the same argument can also apply for any energy healer, but thankfully, energy healers, they don't tend to have as much skill trigger per day. If we were to take a top tier Gardevoir, it has just about 5 triggers a day at level 50 with the maximum number of skill trigger stats that you can get, which is slightly below Espeon. And Espeon is not the top tier in its skill, so a little bit more than slightly. But where Gardevoir shines is that once your Pokemon are at 130% energy or 150% energy, you can actually swap it out. Whereas Espeon, well, it fails to be that good if you don't continue to leave it on the team and continue to collect those skills. So the downside of having too much skill trigger is that you need to log into the game more often in order to collect. But thankfully for healers, once you reach 150%, you can swap it out for another team member anyway, so it's not as big a deal. Whereas for Charge Strength, if you're not collecting, well, you're not making use of your level 6 main skill that you've invested all these seeds on. So some of you now might argue, well, what if I have skill level up M and S, and therefore making it a relatively free to play Espeon? So I didn't even have to invest 1 seed at all, or maybe I do just invest 1 main skill seed if it's Espeon, since it can evolve once only. Then would it be worth running an Espeon as a free to play Espeon so that you don't really waste too much resources? Well, then the problem is, well, we'll have to take out 2 sub skills to make up for that skill level up M and S. So let's say we were to take out skill triggers and we put in skill level up and skill level up instead of the main skill seed. So we'll just invest 1 main skill seed in this Espeon. Well, immediately it's already worse than just a berry finding S top tier for Alligator. So even as a free to play unit, it doesn't tend to be very good compared to just running a Feraligatr that has BFS on every area and not having to worry about logging in to collect the skill every few hours. So while we're comparing the upper end, so a high level, level 50, I would say that Berry Specialist, a top tier Berry Specialist, is going to be better than a top tier Charge Strength M or Charge Strength S skill specialist. But where these Pokemon do really shine is at the lower levels. Let's say for some reason a new area gets released and you do not have Berry Finding S berry Pokemon for those areas that match the favorite berries, but you happen to have 4 main skill seeds that you've invested in Espeon. And what I'm going to do here is make Espeon level 10 and give it skill trigger M, still giving it the skill up nature and give it 4 main seeds. For some reason, you are a free to play player and you have 4 main seeds lying around, but you don't have enough candies to level up any of your Pokemon. Let's take a look at a level 10 comparison between Espeon and a Berry Finding S for Alligator. Now, without favorite berry, Espeon at level 6 main skill far outshines Feraligatr with Berry Finding S and also level 6 main skill, as you can see here, in terms of total strength. And it's thanks to the fact that Espeon still provides huge skill trigger strength, because largely the strength of skill production is to do with the level of the skill, less to do with the level of the Pokemon. Whereas berry strength wise, we are mostly looking at the level of the Pokemon itself, which is why even for Feraligatr, it gets more skill strength because of a level 6 main skill than even its berry strength per day. So if you had the resources to dump all of your seeds, or even if you didn't, let's say you got skill level up. So we're going to change this Espeon and give it skill level up instead at level 10. Of course, then it won't need 4 main seeds, but it doesn't matter. It won't go over level 6 anyway. It will only need 2 main seeds. Well, even then, it's still slightly better than Feraligatr. So now you understand why I say that at early game, well, provided you have the resources to do more main seeds than you can do leveling up of a Pokemon, Charge Strength can be quite a good skill. It can carry you quite a long way. And let's take it up a notch and go to level 25. Even then, and by the way, we've gone back to skill trigger rather than skill level up for Espeon. Even at level 25, Espeon still wins out as a generalist, provided neither gets favorite berry type, compared to level 25 Feraligatr. But you can see Feraligatr closing in as we go up to level 40, and then eventually very close at level 50. And once level 50 gets unlocked and we can reach even higher levels, that berry strength will continue to go up. Whereas that charge strength skill level, unless they unlock this as well, will stay where it is. Now let's go back to our original example where we did level 50. We're looking at the top tier Espeon versus the top tier Feraligatr. This time we're going to give them favorite berry, assuming that both Oran Berry and Psychic Berry are favorite berries. Which one is going to give you more strength? And you can see that Feraligatr, or in general, berry specialists that are of the correct favorite berry typing with berry finding S is going to be far better than a skill specialist. Which is why we have to go back to making sure our team is filled with berry specialists that match the favorite berry as a priority. And only if there are slots left after you've put in a healer and after you've put in just the right amount of ingredients specialists in order to cover the ingredients, then we look at filling the team with something like a Charge Strength M, or it may be another berry specialist. And which one you choose will be dependent on how you play the game. But given the difference is actually not that big when favorite berry is not active, I would say that why not just go with the simpler option, a berry specialist that you don't have to log in frequently to collect the skill in order to match the strength of its competitor. The advantage of the competitor, Charge Strength M, skill specialist, would be at early levels. So my recommendation in terms of investing in an Espeon, by the way, again, you should be going for an Ampharos where you can, unless it's specifically for Lakeside, is that you'd only do it if you can't fill the team with a high level berry finding S berry specialist. But if your account weren't that strong to begin with, I don't know how I feel about dropping 4 main skill seeds on an Espeon whose potential highly depends on how frequently you log into the game. Which leads me to a suggestion I have for the developers. Please give us an inventory for skills. Let us bank maybe 2 skills at a time so that we don't have to log in 20 times a day if we're running a Golduck. Of course, it will probably break the game because energy for everyone healer will just be overly broken. You wouldn't even spend half the time with it on the team during the day because you could be triggering 2 skills at a time. So some game balance would be needed for something like that to be implemented. But until then, Charge Strength skill, as a skill specialist, it's not my recommendation. It's good for early game, but it's costly. And if it's costly, well, it's not really early game. It should be late game if it costs you 4 main skill seeds. So to conclude Advanced Eevee Guide Part 2.5, I would say that if your goal is to have a skill that you can bring to any area as a generalist, and preferably not Espeon, so you can save an extra skill seed if you go for Mareep. And if you do get a Mareep, be prepared to go for 3 main skill seeds so that you don't waste slots for skill level up because you want skill trigger for it to be relevant. If your goal is to fill a team that you otherwise can't fill with a high level berry specialist with berry finding S, like a BFS Feraligatr in any area outside of Cyan Beach, then yes, it's okay to invest in a Charge Strength M or S Pokemon. You just have to log in frequently to collect that skill.